All right, so there's been a lot of talk online, and I keep seeing a lot of people pointing out that your attack doesn't seem to matter in Diablo 4. Now, I've seen some videos, and a lot of the things they talk about is, hey, your paper damage doesn't matter. What really matters is your multipliers. Make sure to focus on your multipliers, your multipliers, your multipliers. Everybody's harping on multipliers. Now, multipliers are important, and they are something you should very much pay attention to in Diablo 4 because they multiply your base damage. I think that it's a disservice for a lot of people to say that attack doesn't matter, because then it gets in your mind that your attack is not your most important number, when it is. When it comes to increasing your damage output in Diablo 4, you should always prioritize making your base attack power as high as possible. The reason for that is your base number is what is multiplied to give you your final damage. If there is ever realistically a choice between adding a little bit more to your base damage or adding to a multiplier, most of the time it is actually better to add to your base damage. I do want to look at this very quick with this spreadsheet that I just tossed together, because this spreadsheet highlights how important base damage is and why it's something you should prioritize and not just think about your multipliers. So the top set of charts here shows if your attack power was 10 and your multiplier was a multiple, we go 10, 100, 1000, and 10,000, what your damage output would be. In the second table, we show what would happen if we increased your attack power by 1 and we didn't increase your damage multiplier. And this shows the damage output that you would get from that increase. The next table over, we show if we increased your attack power by 0, but we increased your damage multiplier by 1. In this scenario, if you were to increase your attack by 1 and your multiplier by 1, the numbers would come out even. Meaning, in a 1-for-1 world here, it wouldn't matter which one you decided to do because you would get the same outcome. So in the next line down, we're going to look at this times 100. So in this situation here, we increase our attack by 1 and we increase our multiplier by 1. In this situation here, adding 1 to your attack is better than adding 1 to your multiplier. Makes sense so far, right? We extrapolate this out further and show that the 1 in the attack versus the 1 to your 1000 multiplier still shows that the 1 point to attack was better than adding 1 point to your multiplier. So in this example, we're going to add 20 to both sides of the equation. So if you have an attack of 20 and you multiply it by 10, you are going to get 200. If you have a base attack of 10 and you multiply it by 20, you will also get 200. So in this situation, it depends on where you have the 20 to put, right? So in the further down example, if you have a base attack of 20 and you have a multiplier, damage multiplier of 100, you will deal 2000 damage. Now, if you have a base attack of 10 and you add 10 to the multiplier, remember the multiplier here is 100, so we're only going to add 10 here, you're going to come out with 1100 damage. 1100 damage is less than 2000 damage. So in this example here, it is better to add 10 to your attack than it is to add 10 to your multiplier. If you look further down on the chart, we see the same trend. 20 attack versus 1010 on your multiplier. In this situation, you will end up with 20,000 attack if you add 10 to your attack versus having 10,100 damage if you add 10 to your multiplier. Are you starting to see a pattern yet? Now, we're going to go even further into this. If we were to add 100 to our attack and 100 to our multiplier, you would get the same result. However, if we were to do a 110 attack versus a 200% multiplier, It is no contest as to which one is going to give you more damage. So what does this mean for you as a gamer? Anytime you can increase your base attack, you should do it, no matter how small the increase is. If there is a choice between adding to your attack percent or adding to your base damage, always prioritize the base damage. Multipliers are important. And if you have a place to add a multiplier, you should always add a multiplier, as long as that multiplier isn't taking precedence over adding pure raw attack. A lot of the videos online keep pointing out that attack is unimportant, and they point towards increasing your multiplier. The disservice there is it gets embedded in people's brains that their base attack doesn't matter. So if there is a 5 or a 10-point upgrade on their weapon, they ignore that because in their mind, all that matters is their multipliers are bigger, and a 1 or a 2-point or 5 or 10-point increase on their base attack isn't going to net them anything, when realistically, it is going to be the biggest impact on their character long term. So in the furthest down example here, what we're going to showcase is why the base attack is so important and how much you would have to add to your multiplier in order to get the same results. So to put this in perspective, right, if we were to look at this in a different way, if we were to add 100 attack, how much more of an increase would we need on our multiplier in order to get the exact same effect? So if we were to add 100 to our attack, we would need to add 100 to our multiplier to balance the scales. However, this really starts to ramp up as your multiplier gets larger. So if we have 110 attack and a multiplier of 100, in order to get that to be the exact same with a base 10 attack, we would need to take our multiplier all the way up to 1,100. We would need to increase our multiplier by 1,000 to get the exact same effect adding 100 attack did to our equation. If you ramp this up further and we go to a multiplier of 1,000, you would need to have a multiplier of 11,000 to come out with the same attack that you would have got with a base attack of 110 times the multiplier of 1,000. And this gets even larger when we get to the final numbers. If you increase your attack from 10 to 110 and your multiplier is at 10,000, you will do 1,100,000 damage. Now, if your base attack is at 10, you would need a 110,000 multiplier in order to get the same damage as the one we had before, or you would have to increase your multiplier by 100,000 in order to get the same thing. Long story short, there's a lot of math in there and a lot of numbers, and I'm sure that's going to give a lot of people a headache. The important takeaway from this entire thing is that people are doing a disservice to the Diablo 4 community by saying your attack doesn't matter. Your attack matters immensely when it comes to the amount of damage you do. You should always prioritize getting your attack number as large as possible. When it comes to other things outside of that, you should increase the multiple. So anything that makes your base attack higher will give you a higher damage output than any sort of number that you can add to your multiple in most cases, as we've seen in the spreadsheet. Hopefully this helps explain things and get you thinking about damage properly in Diablo 4. Yes, you should pay attention to your multipliers. Yes, you should prioritize multiplicative damage buckets over additive damage buckets. But the number one thing you need to prioritize is your base damage. Your base damage requires less to increase your damage output. If you have a choice between a multiplicative bonus, an additional bonus, or an additive bonus, or your base damage, 99.9% of the time, you should increase your base damage. Hopefully this video helps you and gets you really thinking about damage properly in Diablo 4. If you've enjoyed the video, consider checking out our backlog of videos. And as always, have a great day.